morning, everyone. I'm Dario Forte, and I'm the CEO of DFLabs, a company that is based in Italy with offices in Boston, Abu Dhabi, Skopje, and London. We're born as a pure service company in the sector of data breach. For the first 5 years of our life, we've been working as a subcontractor here in Europe for mostly the big four, handling incidents. Just in the first 4 years of work, we handled over 2.3 petabytes of data. So we accumulated a pretty good experience in how to handle security incidents, how to investigate those incidents, and eventually how to respond to them. And at the same time, starting in 2010, we also worked on at that time it was new type of technology, able to orchestrate and respond to incidents. In that particular time, it was a pure case management dedicated to IR, but then we evolved very rapidly into security automation and orchestration, and that happened until May last year when we got our first round of financing. Evolution Equity is the same investor of Carbon Black, OpenDNS, before being sold to Cisco. One of the partner of Evolution was the CTO of AVG, recently sold to Avast for $1.8 billion. So this kind of investors always invested in companies that have, they say, disruptive products in particular fields. Again, we are headquartered in Milano. The majority of our customers are based in the US. We also have pretty big number of customers here in the EMEA region. And I will try also to bring some of my experience as an ISO co-editor. I co-edited 3 standards in the field of incident response, and now the 4th one that is going to be with the number attributed next quarter is going to be on security operations. So I spend most of my time discussing with colleagues and trying to, modulate the politics around the standardization in IR and security operations. So I will try to share some of my experience about it. So the agenda for today, why security automation? So security automation and orchestration is important nowadays for CISOs and for companies. This is the first topic that I would like to cover today. How it can generate return on security investment, how it could not generate investment, and what kind of risk a company could be exposed in order to not go to that way, and where CISOs are going on security automation and orchestration. That particular topic will be covered according to research that DFLabs performed with ESG Group, which is an analyst firm, about the usage of security automation and orchestration for over 500 companies interviewed in the past 3 months. And I will be more than happy to share with you the results under a form of PDF at the end of the presentation. So what is security automation and orchestration? It is a technology type of paradigm that has one goal: reducing the operational time and the reaction time to incident from days into minutes. The 3 problems that currently security operations are facing, Security Operations Center and CISOs are facing, are basically reflected here in this slide. The first one is that there are so many alerts generated by CM and so few people that are able to handle those alerts that basically they are not able to guarantee the scalability between the number of alerts and the incident that actually they need to take care of. And when they are able to do that, there is another issue called alert fatigue that basically it's a number of overwhelming, continuous, same type of alerts that actually are just taking the time from analysts without providing any value. The second issue is that the reaction time is definitely too long compared with the damage that incidents are creating. So the majority of the activity currently being performed by security analysts in SOC and CISO are still being performed manually. So there are tools, there are a lot of tools, and then you can see the third issue. There are a lot of tools out there. The average of security tools into a security operations center is between 35 and 55 different platforms. But there are so few analysts able to orchestrate them the activity is still being performed manually, and the reaction time is too long. So if you add these three problems to the main fact that despite what recruiters are claiming on LinkedIn, there is an enormous skill shortage in terms of real security analysts and SOC people, you really understand that security operation are going to be one of the major challenge for CISOs in the next 36 to 48 months. So the only solution that we think can help CISOs to do, to perform, the right governance over security operations is using automation and orchestration. So when we started to build this kind of technology, that is basically that has basically two goals. First, orchestrating people and processes, and second, orchestrating machine-to-machine actions. I will explain how it works in the next few minutes. We also wanted to discuss the topic with the CISOs. So we interviewed over 100 CISOs on our own. Some of them is in our advisory board. We have Wells Fargo, for example. We have Mubadala. Mubadala is the biggest sovereign fund in the UAE. It's a $650 billion capitalization. It's a small one. And we also have NBAD, and we have Isabel, we had NATO, the Department of Homeland Security in the US. So we made a series of questions to these people, and we asked, first of all, which are your top 4 priorities for security operation and IR? So they answered, the majority of them were answering with the following question, so to speak. So we know that data breach and cybersecurity incident can be even more lethal if we are not able to know the following points. First of all, what's happening? It looks silly, but when you have a lot of alerts and a lot of different security platforms that are generating events, results, observable, indicator of compromise, you actually don't know what's happening. So people are actually required to do manually a series of triage activity that instead should be done in another way. The second point is definitely probably one of the most important with the CISO, because they have so many alerts that they need to prioritize the response. So the second question is how they can prioritize that response. The third one is that, of course, still even more related to CISO activity, because the more damage CISO cannot limit, the more his job is at risk. So they want to know how they can contain the damage. And the fourth, last but not least, they want to know if the problem that they are facing has occurred elsewhere. And this is not gossip. They want to know if the problem and the incident that they are facing is actually occurred elsewhere, because if A, it happened elsewhere, so probably the good news is that probably somebody else already found the solution and the course of action. So there is no reason to reinvent the wheel. Second, if that not happened elsewhere, what that could mean? It could mean basically that most probably the CISO is facing a targeted attack. So, and when it comes into targeted attack, the type of techniques and methodologies that needs to be used to investigate and respond to incident is absolutely different from the normal one. And the good news is that the majority of the CISOs that we've been speaking with, they are in some extent available to share the intelligence about the incident and the course of actions of the incident itself. I will show you how it works in the next few slides. So how usually a security operation orchestration and automation works. So before, and forgive me, I have to be here so I can. Before, people were doing this kind of activity manually. You have a series of data sources here that could be CM on top and a series of additional objects that generate data or can be called to produce data that are able to, for example, threat intelligence endpoint to produce value to the security operations center. But now this part, while before was completely manual, now it can be fully automated or semi-automated depending from the maturity of the customer. And when I talk about automation, that means that when it comes into a CM alert, for example, depending from the CM alert, the SAO is able to run the most appropriate playbook or series of playbooks or chain of series of playbooks, depending from the type of incidents, and those playbooks can be automatically applied or semi-automatically applied. Before, security analysts had to look at several consoles before understanding what's going on. Now, with SAO, everything is consolidated into a single view, so there is a potential reduction up to 80% of the time necessary to perform an incident response activity. That is usually conducted in several ways. There are engines in the SAO that can be rule-based or Bayesian, or it depends from the point of view based upon machine learning and artificial intelligence. This is a topic that I would like to touch at the end of the presentation. But basically, the automation is performed by the machine. It is continuously evolved, and it is in and out performed via API. And depending from the type of conditions, single actions or chain of actions or playbooks can be applied. So you can imagine the value that this kind of platform can generate. Before, it was everything was manual. Now everything can be concentrated into a single point that before was not available. And another interesting thing is that once the incident has been handled and probably a solution has been validated, the CISO and the Security Operations Center have two choices. First, keep it in-house and create a growing knowledge base within the organization, or share it with the rest of the world in an anonymous way. And the majority of the CISOs that we interviewed about it, they feel comfortable with sticks and taxi. So the question now is, how many of you are familiar with sticks? Okay, very good. So taxi is the method of transport of sticks observable. So the majority of the CISOs that we interviewed are okay with this kind of sharing method. We are part of the Oasis. I don't know if you know that now, sticks it's coming into version 2.0, and there are a lot of new enhancements related to anonymization of the source of the data. So that could be also able to guarantee sort of compliance with the GDPR, which is one of the topics that then, of course, we will introduce afterwards. So we interviewed these 100 people, and then we asked for help from ESG. There is a pretty famous analyst called John Oslick, and we worked with him in order to see how people can eventually be available to adopt SAO. We interviewed people from finance, critical infrastructures, healthcare, and MSSP. MSSP is very important because another topic that I would like to touch briefly today, probably is good for reflection within the group, is that many companies think that giving the security operation out to an MSSP could reduce the problem of reactivity and lack of people within the Security Operations Center locally. Well, actually, we discovered that this is absolutely not true. Because the same issue that local company may have with their local Security Operations Center is scaled up at the MSSP level because they have exactly the same problem. So the skill shortage is a problem at end user level and again also at MSSP level. So that's why also MSSP are looking for this kind of implementation. They also have, of course, different issues to solve, such as, for example, the multi-tenancy and so on. So I don't want to make you lose time on this topic, but it was one of the questions that we did. So the question were top 4 priorities. We already discussed about them. The CISO's opinion on automation and orchestration, why they could adopt an SAO and why they could walk away. The timeline and method for implementation, it could be good for discussion as well. And of course, understanding and vision on machine learning and artificial intelligence. So I'm a former police officer, but I spent a lot of time in the scientific, I will say also joking, the nerd world. Artificial intelligence in incident response does not exist. Period. And I'm happy to accept any challenge. There is some very good implementation of AI on detection and malware analysis and capitalization of malware behavior and indicators and observable, but this is not incident response. It is another story. So when you see vendors such as Silence and CrowdStrike and Carbon Black, They are theoretically also applying AI to incident response, but scientifically this is not correct. So I can anticipate, and I will show you also the slide afterwards, that CISOs are happy to hear artificial intelligence, marketing buzz at dinner, but when it comes into RFP, they are not in agreement with the salespeople that claim that their product are able to do so. So the first, another interesting point that we shared with the CISO that we interviewed is that, do you think that humans can be replaced by machine? The answer was basically no. First of all, there is a technology point. So they said that full automation, it is interesting, but it's still not 100% mature. Nor customers feel themselves 100% mature. So they think that they will never switch, like many vendors are asking to do, into full automation from a day to another. They want to have a path, they want to be still in control, and they want to make sure that their trust on input data will be definitely well posed. Otherwise, the damage created by the wrong output data could be even worse on the incident that is being investigated. Amar, it's for me? I cannot answer. I'm in a meeting. Okay. I forgot what I wanted to say. I'm getting old. There are several vendors that are working on creating playbooks and connectors in the open source world. So the next question that we did to customers was, are you believing that using open source as a main source of playbooks can be useful for you? Would you ever adopt playbooks and connectors created by the open source communities in your environment? So the answer was the majority, no, I wouldn't. Why? Because there are a lot of hidden costs and lack of validation hidden in it. If I reuse material from the open source community, I might spend more time in validating and controlling and checking that material in order to make it effective. Some of them instead says that open source can help CISOs to save a lot of time. But then it comes back into the specialty and the skills of the technical people within the team, because they will spend a lot of time in studying and validating somebody else's material. Another question that we did is that, would you be available to use end-to-end incident response automation in your environment? And the answer was not. I am not going to install yet another agent in my organization. I do prefer to have the orchestrator handling and connecting with my existing infrastructure. The question that we did afterwards was, is machine learning mature? And they said, if it comes into machine learning, the answer is yes. And if it comes into AI, I already said what they think and what I think. But the most important thing is that they will not switch into full automation, because they are, in case of liability and or court proceeding, they will be never able to bring a technology platform in court to testify. So they want to stay in control. If they give the decision in the hands of a machine, also from a liability standpoint, there will be probably a hole that it will be difficult to eventually to block. Last but not least, we also asked them if they think that the usual current ticketing system can help them in order to orchestrate process. The answer was not. So then it came into benefit of adopting automation and orchestration. Definitely the first point is we will adopt automation and orchestration to simplify and improve the quality of the process. We could definitely use it to reduce the skill shortage, because the majority of the repetitive tasks, low-level tasks, will be performed by the machine with very low risk. Of course, we will have higher productivity and overall cost reduction. Another important thing for their side is that if we replace manual and, let's say, creative application of the process with playbooks that are based upon SOP and standards, we can definitely contribute to reduce the human errors. And last but not least, the interchangeability. There is a big turnover within SOC, people that change company and they move from a company to another. And when somebody leaves, you're gonna be in trouble if you don't have the possibility to replicate the skill and keep the skills and the knowledge base within your organization. So these kind of tools are able to, to create a knowledge base that it can be automatically and easily repeatable. When they adopt vendors and when they walk away, let's start from the first part. They walk away when salespeople say, it is fully automated, buy and forget it. They are not going to marry that theory. They're going to walk away from vendors that say that this kind of solution can be out of the box. Incident response and security operation automation has nothing out of the box. There are something that can be prepared, can be available, let's say, in that way, but it's absolutely no out of the box. They walk away if they are not sure that the vendor cannot provide already pre-built playbooks and knowledge base. They don't like vendors that disappear after the software go live. They want to have a continuous relationship with the vendor. Another interesting case about machine learning and his ability and AI and his ability to replace humans. One of the CISO that we interviewed is that I will never sell internally to my board as AO as a pure human replacement because I may have problem with labor unions. Because they think that I want to create and introduce this kind of technology as a human replacement and guarantee layoff and so on. So they're going to adopt this kind of platform if proposed by a trusted advisor. They are going to scrutinize the vendor if it's able to understand the local scenario. And of course, they want to see at the return on the investment. Usually the return on investment is guaranteed between the ratio between the cost of the product and the number of analysts and their time and their capability to solve the issues. There are formulas able to do so. And of course, they look also at the compliance implication. The GDPR now, it's an interesting leverage to use in order to guarantee this kind of investment. This is some of the example. They are looking a lot of the possibility of having dashboard. They want to have everything under control. So dashboards are very important, and dashboards are segmented by users. The playbooks, if you want, we can go through playbooks afterwards, but playbooks, this is an example. So the playbooks can be, again, manually, semi-automatically, and automatically applied. Playbooks can be sequential actions or conditional-based actions. Playbooks can be for humans, for machine, so machine tell another machine what to do, and a blended way. Playbooks can be visually created, can be created upon templates, can be created upon coding. Another thing that is interesting to know is that some of this technology is also able to represent the correlation between incident. This is a difference between the correlation at incident level and threat intelligence level. The threat intelligence vendors are able to correlate feeds, but at that stage it is still noise. In this particular case, when you have an incident, such technologies can also tell you if this particular incident that you are handling in a particular moment is correlated to some other incident that may happen in your organization or could have happened somewhere else, okay? Why that it is important? Because usually when there are points in common, one of the points in common is the course of action. So you can have the visualization of the complete point in common between incidents, and then if you click on those incidents, you can also see which course of actions are available to be applied. This is a huge time saving. So we are going to the end. What ESG survey is basically demonstrating is that there is a very important shift to use machine learning into security analytics and SecOps. So rule-based type of paradigm are going to be replaced by machine learning. The driver for machine learning adoptions are basically, the most important is this one, to accelerate incident response. The more the ML engine can work, the more time we save and the more we can accelerate. And of course, the more the ML engine is effective, the less the people are involved in routinary and repetitive tasks. This is very important because that means that you can save also money in handling the continuous change of human resources. Timeline and method for implementation. So depending from the region, sector, and company maturity, the following answers were provided. First of all, we discovered that company size does not necessarily mean maturity. There are smaller companies, still pretty big, but smaller than big one, that are already very quick in adopting this kind of solution. But anyway, 35% of the CISOs that we interviewed have already budgeted it for 2017, 45% for 2018, 25% for the 19. When it will come into the later stage, they will be looking for real machine-to-machine automation. In the US, as usual, they are a little bit ahead of the curve. In the EMEA, this is probably the most interesting data for now. The 60% of the EMEA-based CISOs that we interviewed answered that they plan to accelerate the purchase of this kind of platform due to the GDPR. And another interesting topic is that the 80% of the MSSP that we interviewed are saying that they are seriously evaluating security automation and orchestration for the reason that I mentioned before. This is really the end of the presentation. What kind of strategic actions should we take now? First of all, should we now invest into SAO? So the question that you should probably do yourself is that, do we have enough resources, or do we need SAO in order to help the CISO and, of course, the security operation to be more effective? So if you don't have enough resources, probably it's time to consider this kind of investment. Where should we also use security automation to respond to incident or only to investigate to incident? We personally suggest to start with the incident triage and then proceed forward. So don't start immediately to automate the response, but concentrate your automation effort to understand what's going on, because there are many researchers that say that the majority of the time spent by security operation centers is on the triage, not on the response. So automating the majority of the tasks that before were conducted, have been conducted manually during the triage phase will be probably the most interesting thing to do. And of course, where to start from processes, and then move into the technology implementation. I think we are done. The way we think that automation should help customer is called Supervised Active Intelligence, which is the usage of machine learning keeping people in control. From a scientific standpoint, it is supervised. So it is not unsupervised. That will be a lot of topic to discuss about, but we strongly believe that at this stage it is probably the best way to act.